What's up, everybody? Welcome to EDG Weekly, episode number 23, the podcast where we talk about video games. I'm your host, Undead J, and joining me today is amazing artist and fellow gamer, Nintendo Nate. What's going on?
What's going on, guys?
Chillin'. Glad to see you got your computer operating.
I hope so.
Also joining us today is my main man over at Bad News Tech, Pedro Mirabal. What's going on, Pedro?
Evening, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Very good indeed, sir. We are going to start the show the way we always start the show with our top news segment. And Nintendo Nate, I'm going to give it to you. What's up?
All right, so my little segment for this week is I just wanted to go over my top five anticipated games of 2016. Four of the five games have been released already, and it's not looking good for me personally this year. And so I'm just going to go right down the list, one through five, and this is going to be quite bad. So, number one, the only game on my list that hasn't come out so far is No Man's Sky. And I would be playing it right now if it hadn't got delayed because of that lawsuit. So, uh, not a great start for that. And but I've got all the confidence in the world that this is going to be a game that I will personally enjoy a lot. So, I still have a little hope left in my year of gaming. Number two on my list was Final Fantasy Explorers. Now, this game wasn't exactly a bomb, but it wasn't that great either. It was a Monster Hunter clone with a Final Fantasy skin, and I had a fair amount of fun with the game, but it didn't exactly blow me away in any way.
Isn't that
So,
the game that you were playing with your roommate? And like, wasn't one of your gripes the fact that you couldn't get him invested in the game? So maybe that could have detracted you from the game, possibly.
right, yeah, because it's best played as a multiplayer experience, and if you're not constantly keeping up with one another, it does get a little tiresome because I got way ahead and I was constantly changing back and forth between equipment for the game to actually be fun. So, but that could have been said with any Monster Hunter game as well. It's just there wasn't enough originality in the game for me to really consider it like one of the best games I'd played of the year so far. So that was my number two. Number three was Street Fighter V, which again isn't a terrible game, but it's been marred repeatedly by Capcom's, mishandling of the franchise and just the paid transactions. I mean, I already went on a tirade about that game. So that was my number three pick for 2016. Number four was Star Fox Zero, which I didn't even play. Like,
Wow.
again, not a terrible game, but it wasn't what I wanted. They changed the control scheme. I was really looking for a more classic form of gameplay, which wasn't really there. They shoehorned in a new control scheme, and it had a steep learning curve. It just wasn't what I was wanting in a Star Fox experience. So that was my number four. Now, my number five was probably going to be one of the worst games of the year, and that was Mighty Number Nine.
Ooh.
I was so excited about this game going into the year. I was excited to see the creator of the Mega Man franchise revisiting it with a spiritual successor, and what we got was not great at all. So, my only hope left in the year for my top five anticipated games, now that we're a little over halfway through, is going to be No Man's Sky, which is still looking pretty good in my opinion, and I can't wait to play it. I'm super hyped, and I know we're going to be doing a kind of No Man's Sky prep podcast coming up, so I'm going to take the time to plug that now, and I'll save most of what I want to talk about for that game for that podcast. So uh, that is my little topic for this week. I'm going to
Um,
pass it back to you.
I was gonna ask you, when it came to the Monster Hunter, what was the name of the game? Monster Hunter what?
Final Fantasy Explorers
Or
was the
I'm
one on the
sorry,
list.
yeah, Final
Yeah.
Fantasy Explorers. Some reason I had Monster Hunter in my head that entire time that you said that. So Never mind. No more questions. Uh, now, Pedro, you weren't with us when we did our most anticipated game podcast. What were some of your most anticipated games going into the new year? And have the games that you've been playing, have they really lived up to your expectations that you had on them at the beginning of the year?
Sorry, you put me on the spot because I
Yeah, I
hadn't
did
really
put you
thought
on the
about
spot.
the
Right.
top 5 games I thought
Okay.
from the beginning.
Okay. While you think of it, one game that probably should have been on your radar going into 2016 was Uncharted 4. I'm
Uh,
assuming I'm
yeah,
assuming that's one of the games you were probably hyped for. Am I correct?
absolutely.
Now, did that meet or exceed your expectations, or kind of fall right into place? Like,
That was exactly what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be that flagship game that kind of convinced me that buying the PlayStation a year earlier was a good idea. So I mean that one really did meet my expectations. I mean I'm still trying to think what other games. Quantum Break I was looking forward to for a long time. That one was kind
all
of
right.
disappointing, very
Yeah, right.
mediocre.
That's right.
Um, trying to think, trying
You
to think.
didn't play Far Cry Primal, right?
No, that I heard about later on. Far Cry Primal, another game that I hadn't heard about early on, and I wasn't very keen to it because the other Far Cry game was it was all right. Plus, I heard it was just like a reskin of the previous Far Cry game. So
Right. Yeah. While you think about some, I'll go ahead and talk about. I don't know if I remember all five of mine, but do know the very first game was Ghost Recon Wildlands, which, as you know, is not being released this year. So already my list isn't shaping up too well. The second one was Uncharted 4, which, like Pedro, you just said, and I talked to Nate about it earlier today off camera. Um, it's Naughty Dog, so my expectations for the game, like I set the bar really high, and I feel like they delivered. But like what I was telling Nate about the game specifically is how they kind of they surprised me, like by things I never expected, like the whole Jeep mechanics, and like the way you actually had to get out of the Jeep and put the winch around the tree and actually connect it yourself. Things like that really help add immersion to the game, and I felt like the dialogue was really well written, and you know playing with Nate's brother, what was it, Sam, I believe. That was super dope. I liked his character. I wonder if we'll see more of him moving forward now that this was Nate's final journey. Um, Another game that made my most anticipated list was Housemarque's new game. Alien Nation, because I was such a Dead Nation fan, and twin stick shooters are becoming one of my favorite like genres, and I was a little let down by not Dead Nation, Alien Nation, simply because when I play a twin stick shooter, I kind of like for the game to be pretty straightforward, and not really get too deep. To me those games, they're not necessarily dumb fun, but the big hook for me is like they're very approachable and really easy to jump in and out of. I enjoyed playing Dead Nation co-op with my buddy Hutch. Like that's some of the most fun I've had in gaming this year. And then when it came to Alien Nation, it just got too deep. They try to add too many RPG elements to it, and like crafting and like breaking down your weapons. So I actually ended up falling out of that game. I've only put about 5 hours into it. Not that the game isn't good. It just to me is like a little deeper than I was expecting, and I had just come off a really big game, so it was kind of like it felt like a big game in it on its own. So it's probably one like I'll look back at later in the year when there's like a drought in games. But that was a little bit of a disappointment. The other game was a game you just we just talked about Far Cry Primal, and those that say that it's a reskin, Far Cry game, I'd kind of say yes and no to that. Yes, it has the same kind of mechanics. They get around some things by using animals to kind of disguise the fact that they're using the same mechanics. But being a huge fan of the Far Cry games, I was okay with this. Like, that's kind of what I wanted, is more of the same. I felt like they did change up enough of the systems to make it feel like a new, fresh experience, and I really enjoyed the game. I spent about 60 hours in it. Um, Hunting the big, the mammoth and the saber-tooth tiger was extremely fun. Like, following like the scents and using your vision uh, to seek out these animals and tame them and use them at your disposal was super dope. Raiding enemy bases and having, bears and saber-tooths at your disposal to kind of help you take out the enemies, that was so much fun. Crafting all the different weapons, the clubs and the spears, like all that was really cool. You could have well, the cavemen could have sex in it, I should say, not you yourself, but you could witness cavemen and women going at it, so that was kind of cool. The berserker bombs, like turning enemies against themselves, like that was neat. The bee bombs, like everything that was in the game, like it really gave it some freshness that I feel like the franchise needed. So calling it a reskin isn't necessarily fair, but do they recycle ideas? Yeah, they do. So, and I can't remember what my fifth game was, but that was what my most anticipated games. And so far, it's been pretty good for me. Uncharted and Primal really delivered. So, it's been pretty good 2016 for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy's The Division was the third one that I would probably put on my list. So I had the three in the beginning of the year, and I have two towards the end. Which would be either Recore, Gears of War, Scalebound, or what was the other one?
What was your thoughts on the Division?
It was alright. It didn't capture me as
Right.
much as I thought it would. I thought I'd still be playing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's not a game like Destiny where I would put in, 40, 50 hours within the first week and a half to make sure that I got all the best gear or that I caught up with everybody. Um, yeah, that just wasn't that type of game for me per se. It didn't really capture me in that way, and I thought it would. It didn't really capture a lot of the people that have purchased it, to be
That's what I was
honest with
gonna
you.
say. Yeah.
Um,
That's one of the games that I wonder, like, because they're doing the DLC or expansion, whatever you want to call it. They're gonna keep rolling out expansions to keep the game alive, but I wonder how much user base is still there playing that game, because I know you fell off of it pretty hard, and I also fell off it pretty hard. I mean, once I finished all the main story quests, like I was done with the game. I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore.
yep, it's pretty much the way I felt about it too. So
Yeah.
that it might go through a Destiny thing where maybe, year one comes out, like year one content comes out, and I'll revisit it again. But for now, I'm pretty much done with the division.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was
Recore
gonna
comes
say.
out in 2 months, I think. So
Oh, and one
that's
one last thing on the division. I was gonna ask you, what do you think that it would take to revitalize that game and get people interested? Because to me, I think that they need to add some variation to the areas that you're visiting, because all you're really seeing is a concrete jungle, basically. I mean, it's stone building after stone building, and like I know that it's mimicking New York and it's supposed to look like that, but it's just hard when they do add an expansion, and it kind of like, it's like, wow, this looks like the same area that I was just in. You're not getting really any new interesting areas to play in. So I just think maybe adding like Central Park or something that's going to give the game a different feel and look and aesthetic would probably help me get back into it. So, what would be something to get you back in?
I would expect that to be in one of the expansions. I mean, to be honest with you, I think this new expansion that they just announced at E3 theoretically could be enough to get me into it, but I mean, I'm already way too far out, and it
Yeah,
looks like the crowd that stayed in is way too far ahead. So, you know,
yeah,
I'd have to play that catch-up game, and until they do something like they did with Destiny, where you could like automatically go to 25 or whatever the case may be, just wouldn't do it for me.
yeah. And you said you got some games that are coming out at the end of the year that got your attention?
I mean, of course, Recore is going to be a shorter game, but it's a new IP. Just want to, check that out and see if that's going to be any good in September. And then Gears of War will probably be, a Game of the Year candidate coming out in October, which is a super busy month, with Battlefield, Titanfall, and I think Call of Duty coming on around that
Right,
same time. So.
right. Speaking of Call of Duty, over at DualShockers, they have a new 7-minute trailer for Modern Warfare. So check that out if you haven't already.
So
Yeah. Um, okay. Y'all want to hit anything more on that little discussion in there? I think we got that pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. For my top news, so a couple weeks ago, the smaller indie game hit the PS4 and Xbox One marketplace. It's been on the PC for I think 3 years now. I guess you would call it early access. The name of the game is 7 Days to Die, and basically it is a Minecraft-esque type of game where you kind of it's tower and defense. So you go out in the world and you gather resources and you bring it back to your base, and you're kind of trying to gather food, clean water, and all while kind of like building up your base, because every 7 days the blood moon comes in, and with it you get these infected that storm your base, because all of a sudden they can sense you and they're aware of your presence wherever you're at on the map. They can sense you, so you have to be ready for that blood moon to roll in. And the object is to just kind of bunker down through the night and kind of wait it out and hope that your base can stand up to the infected showing up to tear it down. And so every 7 days that goes by, it gets harder and harder. So like my experience on the first 7 days, I think I had like 4 infected nurses show up, and I only died once on that one. I found a prefab building that was already there, and I just kind of camped out on the second floor, and I had very little resources, but when day 14 showed up, I tried moving to a different refurb, and if I wasn't dying of dehydration, I was dying of like starvation, or a bear would attack me in the wild. And so it was kind of like there's a lot of variables at play, and so you always got to be thinking of like your character's vitals. You have to have your surroundings. You got to take a lot into account. Then when day 21 hit, I decided to stop using prefab buildings, and I found a cave system. So I decided to try to build my own fort to see if it would stand up, and it didn't stand up. um, like they broke through it with ease, and I probably died like 10 or 15 times, like over and over and over. And what was interesting is I dug out a little cave system that I was going to use as like a fallout shelter, in case all hell broke loose, which it did. But the only problem there is a bear got stuck down there. So when I died and I went to go, because when you die, you have to go back to that area to get regather your resources, and it was stuck down there with the bear, so I had no way to get all my stuff back. The bear kept killing me over and over and over again. It was very comical. It's going to be on the next stream that I upload, so if you want a good laugh, check that out. But my overall impressions of the game, so the game retailed, the day I got it was launch day, and they had a little deal going, so it was $26. I think now it's $29. So it's not a lot of money to get into. I think it's worth it for the price. Like I said, I got 30 hours logged in thus far. That being said, I think I'm just about done with the game. Things like I'm okay with the game not looking that good, but when the color palette is just as dull as it is in this game, it doesn't lend itself to being something that you want to stare at for too long. Like it almost like it just like it puts you in a mood you almost don't want to be in. You know, Minecraft isn't the prettiest game in the world unless you have an imagination. And if you do have an imagination, it's one of the most beautiful games there is. Um, and this game, you know, it's a game that actually has graphics, and the graphics, I would compare them to like an early PS3 game. So you know, there's that, and it's something. It's a game that, for the money, I would recommend if you are into tower and defense type of games. It has some balancing issues. It has some issues where you get the crossbow pretty early, and it's pretty much as good as a shotgun or an SMG or anything else if you go down that skill tree to enhance that weapon. So it's kind of like there's not really a lot of incentive to pick up other weapons. So there's some balancing issues there, and overall, I'd say it's a pretty mediocre to okay game. You know, somewhere right in the middle of that. So that being said, Nate, I know you watched a couple of my streams. What's your thoughts on what you saw?
Uh, I really thought it was kind of interesting. I was big into Minecraft, and I saw, similar crafting elements in there that I thought looked really deep. I thought, from just viewing it, that it looked like, it was going to have plenty of depth to it. And the whole 7-day blood moon mechanic is a really good mechanic for it too. But again, like you said, the overall aesthetic feel of the game isn't that inviting.
Yeah.
It's more of a game like if you just want an experience where you can turn out the lights and kind of have a gloomy, can I just survive long enough to do something kind of game, which can be fun, but it's definitely didn't look like something I would want to put like 60 to 80 hours into.
Yeah, like for a game as I don't want to say ugly, but a game that doesn't look that great. Like you figure the frame rate would be tight. You would figure, the audio cues, if nothing else. Like it was doing this weird thing where if it started raining, like you could take a step back and it'd be like perfectly sunlight, and then take a step forward and like not only would it be raining, but it'd be so loud in your headset, and like, oh, forget it. If thunder cracked, goodbye eardrum. Like it was the weirdest thing ever. And like, I was trying to do a web series with the game, and when those audio cues, like it would just drown out my audio. I thought it was something that I was doing wrong, and it turned out the whole time it was just the game had really bad audio cues. So, and then like before they did the first patch, it was virtually unplayable, and like even to this day, like they need to patch the crap out of it. Like I'm surprised they rolled the game out in this state. Um, that being said, again, like if you are into those types of games, like, they have patched it now. They still got some work to do. I wish they would have gave the game another 6 months and cleaned it up, and who knows, like it may have been a way better enjoyable experience. But Pedro, what are your thoughts? I know you're not really into games such as this, but I just want to get your opinion on it anyways.
Is that game permadeath?
No. There's very little penalty for death actually. If you die, you pretty much wherever you laid down your bed, that's where you'll respawn. And then if you look on your map, you'll see a blue backpack indicating that's where your gear is at. So you just have to make your way back to your gear. Now, I do have a buddy that purchased the game as well. He's playing on a higher difficulty setting, and he told me that you got one chance to get back to your backpack, and if you die on your way there, then you lose whatever you had on you. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So is this game in its full form, or is it final form, or no?
I wouldn't say that it is. Like I was saying, it's been on PC for 3 years, early access, and like it's just making its way on the consoles, but it doesn't feel still like it's a finished product. It feels like there's still like more that they're trying to do, and when doing some research on the game, like they're promising DLC, but like what I read when I see DLC, I'm like, well, they're just adding stuff to the game that needs to be there. And like another thing too is like we've been talking a lot on this podcast about how we've been playing these multiplayer games and falling off them pretty quickly, and like I wonder if it's because they'd be so much better with multiplayer, because this game does have 4-player co-op in it, and if I did have somebody there with me to share those oh shit experiences with, I think it would like lend so much to this game. Like, I think it'd take it from mediocre way up to extremely fun, if I had someone to. So it could be one of those things that, it could be better with a group of friends.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
Hmm. I might have to look into that whenever it comes to the consoles
Oh, it's on console.
as an early release.
They're not calling it that. I just feel like that's what it is. Like to me, it just doesn't feel like a completed game. They're selling it as a completed game. They're not calling it early access or anything like that. It's a regular retail game, but it's kind of like one of those things where you know how they put a game out and it doesn't feel like it's in its complete state, aka Street Fighter 5, and then they just kind of roll out some updates to it and like put it to where it's a full retail game.
Yeah, that sounds real familiar.
Not to take unnecessary shots at Capcom, but that's kind of what it feels like. But yes, it is a full retail game, and it is out on the Xbox One as well as PS4.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was it from my top news. I hope y'all were able to take something away from that. Like I said, it's an okay game. It's not great. If you do have 3 other people to play with, I think it will be a great game. I think being able to produce a base, quicker, since you'll have 4 people gathering resource, I think that could make the grind more bearable. You're in the chat with your friends, you're joking around, you got 4 different ideas, going on and stuff. So I think that all would lend itself really well. So yeah. Uh, Pedro, I
Cool.
understand that you want to tell us about this little game. I don't think that many people have heard of it, Pokemon Go.
Yeah, it's a game that's about a week old, and has broken lots of records in
Oh,
that
my.
short amount of time. It's easily the most social game we have right now. I mean, it is bringing together families like we haven't seen since the Wii days. I'm pretty sure that's a safe assumption. What did you guys say?
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Definitely.
Let me just read off a couple numbers for you guys because I feel like this is something that's this is a keystone game and probably a turning point in Nintendo for Nintendo. At least I believe. And this is also going to lead into the discussion of the week. But before we do that, let me let you know what type of juggernaut we're dealing with here. So, Pokemon Go right now is currently getting around 4 million downloads a day. There are currently under 26 million users, which means that's a higher user base than Twitter, Tinder, Twitter and Tinder. Yep.
Yeah.
And Google Maps. It's not Snapchat level yet, but it will be getting there. The cool thing about this is just the United States basically, because the app is only being released or has only been released in Canada and Europe over the weekend. So they haven't even had the full week. So it seems like most of the United States is really what's carrying this. Now here's a cool stat in terms of a mobile video game, right? So let's say 10 people download a mobile video game. Most mobile video games receive a retention rate of 3 out of 10 players. This game is getting a 7 out of 10 players retention rate, which means 70% of the people who download this game continuously play it. That is crazy. Crazy. And we just talked about games that we started playing and then just fell off and stopped playing. That is wild. The game is averaging 25 cents per user daily. Now, of course, that doesn't sound like much money, but it is double what Candy Crush, the previously the most popular mobile game around, it was getting on a per user basis. Now, Pokemon Go is averaging $1.6 million in revenue per day, and for the last week, it's already made $14 million off of player microtransaction sales. That does not count any deals that they make, which is that's supposed to deal with McDonald's to turn McDonald's into Pokestops. I mean, this is a huge win for Nintendo, a huge win for Niantic, a huge win for gamers who just want to, relive their childhood and the nostalgia of, playing Pokemon and capturing them all. This is the most traded company in Japan right now is Nintendo. They broke the record. There has not been a company in the last decade that has been traded more than Nintendo has. And this is a company that in the stock market was very, very stagnant, was only going down, and would not move the needle. The fact that the Pokemon Go, a mobile game, partnered with a mobile gaming company is what's moving the needle, leads me to my discussion for the week. And I think it's about time that we discuss whether or not Nintendo should hop out of the hardware game. When you've got a game like this that's moving the needle financially, and more importantly, moving the needle in terms of mind share for the consumer and the player, why bother making hardware when you can just repeat the formula with your Metroids, your Marios, your Links, your Donkey Kongs, et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna open up the floor to you guys to see what you guys think, because I'm of the mind that you got yourself a hit with Pokemon Go. I say repeat the formula and continue making money that way. Forget about hardware. License out your software, because that's what moves the needle.
Okay, so I'm going to take it first because we'll let Nate go last since he's the one that's played this Pokemon Go more than the two of us combined. So I want to start off by saying I'm going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate here because Pedro, you're suggesting that you think they should get out of making hardware. I know I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they're all pretty much in unison saying the same thing. However, we have this little console that Nintendo's working on, and it's called the NX. Now, nobody knows what this thing is, and I think that it could use some of this social kind of interacting in the console itself. We've heard rumors that it's going to be a hybrid console that allows you to have, the handheld component using it on the go. So I almost wonder if what we're seeing from this game is kind of a blueprint as to what, the NX is going to be all about. These social type of games like moving forward. Like, here we have what is a really small mobile game. Imagine if you had a fully fleshed out, AAA Nintendo game that had these little mini games, these social type of games on the go that you could just, use on your little handheld, NX controller, if you will, and this could just be something small that leads to something so much bigger. It could be the blueprint to what the NX is. I think that, I'm kind of like on the wait and see mentality. I want to see what this NX is all about. And I think that it really could be the console that we've always wanted Nintendo to put out. That being said, back to the Pokemon Go game specifically, when it first started rolling out, all of a sudden it was the water cooler, conversation that you would have as soon as I went into work the next day after the game launched. I'm talking to some of my vendors at work, and they're like, "You playing that Pokemon Go?" Like it was like insane. Like everybody that I was running into, like the conversations went to, "Oh my God, LeBron James is king," to Pokemon Go. And it was like one of those things where it was like me expecting that it was going to kind of like catch a couple people's attention and then just kind of like falter off. I knew it was going to be a success. Now here's my question. Um, do you think that this game has staying power, Pedro?
Within the game has staying power? Yeah, absolutely. It's got tons of staying power just for the social aspect alone, man. I mean, there were what we counted at least 6 social meetups in the Orlando area alone. A huge one in Crane's Roost on
Oh my
Saturday
God.
or last night actually. A big one in City Walk by Universal. Lake Eola had theirs the week before.
Mm.
I mean, like I said, you've got this is bringing families together. Like, parents are playing this. It's easy to get into. I think the game definitely has staying power. I think that the game, will continue to get better once you can start trading Pokemon. Once some enterprising person decides to start staging tournaments at a local Poke Gym. I mean, there are other people making, their own companies based off of, hey, I've got a 7-passenger van. I'm gonna be your Uber. Rent my 7-passenger van, and I'm gonna drive you around to these different Pokestops, so you don't have to walk there. Like, this is spawning other side projects, simply because the this is so, like, the wave is so big right now. Like, everybody wants to play this game. It's super easy to get into. I mean, it's definitely got staying power. There's no doubt in my mind that this will be the game that people are talking about throughout the rest of 2016 and maybe the beginning of 2017 if there's a big update. What do you think, Nate?
Definitely so. I've played a lot of the mainstay Pokemon titles, and from what I'm seeing with this mobile release, you're getting the first 150, and the initial release is basically just the capturing mechanic and a very basic battle mechanic for the gyms. With future updates, we're going to have trading, we're going to be able to battle each other, and there's the Pokemon games themselves are insanely deep. You think that these are kids games and you think that you just go around and capture and battle these Pokemon, but there's breeding, there's feeding them, there's, there with the touchscreen functionality and the 3DS, some of the later games had, you could pet them and play with them and do all kinds of other stuff. So if they just drop that in with updates over time, this game could be huge throughout the next few years. It could be a Candy Crush level event where everyone's playing this and it doesn't stop for years to come. Plus, there's like, 700-800 Pokemon already, so imagine every major update releasing the next gen of Pokemon up until the most recent gens. So this could go on forever, but I don't think this is going to translate well for other video game franchises. Nintendo has a lot of great franchises, and even though that this template for a game mechanic could be pasted onto another franchise, it's just not going to work. I think that Pokemon will be the definitive way people play these types of games moving forward, because there are going to be copycats, there are going to be other franchises introduced with this map technique and going out and everything. But like Candy Crush, it'll be the staple of this, genre of games. You know, Candy Crush beat out everything else. No one plays Bejeweled as much anymore, or even talks about columns for the Sega systems. These are all Match Jewel titles, but Candy Crush was the most popular one. So even if they do introduce other skins of this genre, I believe Pokemon has all the necessary ingredients to keep it on top, and it for to be the game that people play under this genre. So I don't think Nintendo will get out of the hardware race. I don't think that they should. And they've got enough of a buffer now with this one game that they could afford to screw up the NX. They can afford to make it.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say
some.
now that they got all this revenue off of the game, now they can take chances.
I don't agree with that at all, though. I think that this is the formula that they made with this was not, let's make a mobile game. That's not the formula that everybody wants them to follow. The formula was, we're gonna make a game and we're gonna consult with someone who knows how to, who's gonna give us the proper experience for the game, right? So that would mean for Pokemon Go, they wanted to consult somebody with mobile experience, Niantic. They could do the same thing with their actual, other titles. They could go and say, okay, we want to put Mario Kart on the Xbox and PlayStation, but we need to consult a developer that's going to be able to give us the best experience for that. Or a developer is going to do Super Smash Bros. Properly and do it, in a good way for multi-consoles. Like, they could just turn into a publisher, and they could be the biggest publisher out. Be bigger than Activision, be bigger than Ubisoft, be bigger than EA. And I mean, they already have that juggernaut in Pokemon Go. So Activision Blizzard has what? WoW? I mean, Pokemon Go could easily eclipse WoW numbers in the next couple of years if the updates are as deep and as good as Nate hopes they will be.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest. You are right. Like, I'm not saying that that's not something that they should look at, but I think they should roll out the NX and see what the public's response to that is. See how well it's selling. But yeah, you're right. If like they're not seeing the sales figures that they want to see, then yeah, this I would say it's one of those situations where it's make it break it for the NX.
Like, do you think that if they come out with the NX and it's not as powerful as an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4 now, not even talking about the Neo or the Scorpio, but just right now, they still come out with an underpowered console. They come out with a weird looking controller that's uncomfortable or unwieldy to play, and they incorporate the mobile aspect somehow by getting a controller that maybe like the Vita, where you can say, okay, I'm going to take this, play it on my NX, and then get on the bus or whatever the case may be and play it there, and it just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Are we gonna give them a pass because Pokemon Go exists? Like, no, we're not gonna give them a pass. What Pokemon Go does for the hardcore gamer is give them hope that Nintendo knows what it's doing. So if they ride this wave, and hopefully the NX is the semi classic console that we want it to be, with the classic controllers, with the graphical fidelity that we all want out of a console. I think that we'll see a bigger difference, a bigger change in terms of the public's perception for Nintendo. Because right now, Pokemon Go is big, but people are still saying the Wii U still sucks, and the NX could still probably suck. So they should probably just do this. So
Yeah, I was gonna say to to talk about that. I think that what they need to get right with the NX is they need to do what they didn't do with the Wii U, and that's deliver a good launch lineup. Like, we didn't start seeing games on the Wii U that were quality games, until like 3 years into the console's life. They need to, come out and instantly have the Zelda game, have the big Mario game, have a Metroid game. We never did get a Metroid game on the Wii U, and we've talked about it in the past about the IPs that have been lacking from Nintendo. They need to get those back, and if they get a good launch lineup together for the NX, and instantly get the fans back in that ecosystem, and give them the confidence of knowing that some of their favorite Nintendo games are coming back. Like, Nintendo has never been about graphics and top of the line specs. They've always been about innovation, and they've been about great IPs, and like they make some of the best AAA first party games out there. And to me, like, I think that's kind of sacred of Nintendo. I worry what would happen if we started seeing that thing, or seeing those titles getting funneled onto PlayStation or Microsoft, and then it'll be the battle of, well, it's exclusive on this console, and it was like I don't want to see it go down that funky road. I want to see those games stay on Nintendo. Like, being somebody that's been a gamer since the early 80s, like, to me that's kind of special to play those games on that console, and I like it. Would it help my wallet if it just went over to PlayStation? Of course it would, but then you start getting in this weird world, and then on that, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have exclusives. In a perfect world, I wouldn't have had to wait a year to play one of my favorite franchises, which is Tomb Raider. I wish we just had all these games and we could play them wherever we want to play them. But I know Nate's over there biting his tongue, and I know he's got a lot to say, because we talk about this to no end, like off cam all the time. So, Nate, some of the things we've talked about, lay it on us.
Well, I've said it before, and I'm comfortable with Nintendo doing the craziest things imaginable with the NX. I mean, they should really swing for, a home run here. I mean, do something crazy. All the other companies, Sony and Xbox, they're catering to their fans, which is great. That's why I own a PlayStation, is because, that's like traditional gaming there. But I also own a Wii U because it had the functionality with the gamepad, and I never have yet to play a good game that utilized the gamepad well, which is disappointing, and is another reason why I think that they should take as much time as they need with the NX. There's still potential in the Wii U, I think. I mean, I know I'm a hopeless romantic for Nintendo, but there was tons of great possibilities there. And even if they carry it on to the NX and use, I don't know, like, what I'm thinking is going to happen with the NX is that we're going to get an app we can download to our phones that will just connect straight to the NX. And there'll be some sort of strange cloud computing thing that will make it work perfectly. I have no idea what they could do with it, and that's exciting. It's exciting to see something new, something that I can get into a new console that will have a new way of playing games that I had never even thought about before. I enjoyed the Wii for that reason. There was a ton of great games with the motion controls with that. Even when the N64 came out, it had that weird-looking controller with this analog stick on it. Analog? Who's going to use analog sticks? Well, that's kind of the standard now. So, I mean, they can just do whatever. Like, they're going to ride this Pokemon Go thing for sure. That's a done deal. And even if the NX fails because it's way too weird and people can't get into it, they can afford that. They can be like, well, we screwed that up. let's just make a mini Super NES and put 50 games on it. People go crazy for that, you know. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Nintendo being very eccentric.
Yeah, and I was gonna say one of the conversations that me and Nate had off camera, and Pedro, I'm gonna shoot this question to you. I asked Nate the question, okay, with all the success of Pokemon Go, and this is the highest that Nintendo stocks have been since 1983. Do you ride this success? Do you go to Gamescom where Microsoft and now Sony also announced neither one of them are showing up to uh, Gamescom? Do you, as Nintendo, show up and ride this success into Gamescom and announce the NX? Like while everyone's saying good things about Nintendo and while everyone's eyes are on Nintendo.
That doesn't make any sense too.
No,
No, not yet. I
not
wouldn't.
yet.
No, you would ride this into. So you've got this wave, but then you've also got what presumably is going to be a very well reviewed Zelda game, and then what presumably is going to be the Trojan Horse that they've released with the mini NES with 30 games on it that should
Mm.
continue that nostalgic feel for Nintendo that drops in November 11th. You ride that all the way through to December, and then you announce the NX, or maybe you ride it all the way through to January. But
Yeah,
I
because
think
you
you've
originally
captured.
said January 1st. That's what you said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've captured gamers who grew up with Pokemon who may have left Nintendo, left them for dead. Now they're back playing a Nintendo property, and they're like, "Damn, man, playing this on my Game Boy was so fun. I had so much fun doing this back in the day." And then, they go if they own a Wii U, then they're playing the new Zelda game. If not, then they buy the mini NES, and they're like, man, this is bringing back good memories. Nintendo can really make good hardware and good software. Again, this is all about mind share at this point in time. Um, because if you can win the hearts and minds of the consumer, they're gonna spend their hard-earned cash on you. So I think that by releasing that mini NES in November, you ride that again till December, and then in January you announce the NX, and then you can just ride that wave all the way through to the launch. That's what I would do at least. I wouldn't come out in Gamescom. There's no reason for them to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I like that business model. You should get on the phone with the water right now and let him know how he needs to do it. 'Cause
I'm pretty sure that they've thought of that.
yeah. Now to wrap this conversation up, Nate, we're gonna give you the floor, and we want to know your experience in the game, what level you are, like what experiences you've had, where the game's taken you, literally taken you. So
Okay, so yeah, so I did kind of change my routine a little bit to play this game. It got me, a person who is traditionally a very homebody type guy, to get up early on his day off and actually go out and hit a few Pokestops in the morning before it got like a million degrees outside because we live in Central Florida. So I have been going out. I hit Pokestops. I'm lucky to have a gym right across the street from me, and I also live right next to a lake. So I'm pretty much in like the prime area to be playing this game. There's literally 3 Pokestops within a 5-minute walk from my apartment and the gym. And then living right next to a lake has afforded me some nice Pokemon. I've got a Dratini, I've got a Dragonair, I've got the Tentacruel. I've just straight up caught these fairly easily. And my level is still pretty low. I'm not playing the game enough to be any challenge to any of the gyms. The people who are really playing this game I'm seeing levels up into the mid and high 20s now. And the game basically works by the more powerful Pokemon you can get are tied to your character's level. So if you're a high level Pokemon with greater stats will spawn for you. So you've got to do a lot of capturing, you've got to do a lot of evolving, and just basically playing the game earns you experience points for your character. So it's just a matter of how much time you're putting into the game is how fast you're going to level up. And it does a great job of balancing its mechanics so that it doesn't feel like it's pay to win. Like I mean, it's not even like you can win this game, I guess. I mean, it's barely a game, in my opinion, as a gamer, as it is now. It's only like a couple of mechanics, really, and an item system. But it's insane to think like how it's taken off just with these few basic concepts into it. But my opinion is it's a fantastic game. It's a revolutionary game. I just can't believe like I'm seeing people coming into my store just playing the game, and it's just insane like how it's taken over so quickly. And I'm really excited to see where they go because what is available, like with Pokemon Sun and Moon coming out, I'm totally excited for that. I'm playing those games when they come out for sure. But just knowing that how deep the Pokemon games can be and how much they could integrate into this mobile game is really exciting for the future because we should be getting trading and battling coming out soon, which I'll definitely be getting more into. And yeah, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and Pedro, one of our vendors at our job, he used to work with us over at Albertsons. You don't remember a guy by the name of Josh Keegans, do you?
No.
No. Well, he's our vendor, and this man brings a change of clothes in his car. So immediately getting off work, he can head up to Cranes Roost Park and go out there and play. And then last night, my tattoo artist was telling me that they literally kicked everybody out of Cranes Roost because it got too late and there was too many people there, so they had to kick them out.
It's good. I'm telling you, man, it's become a social phenomenon.
Now, did you try to catch any on your way to Tampa this weekend or no?
No, I didn't turn it on. I
Okay.
probably should have because it was like raining.
I was gonna say I wonder if there was like any like a spike in water type of Pokemon since you were right on the
With all the
coast.
rain.
Yeah. Oh, and the rain too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it follows rain, but I would think that maybe geologically being by the water, you'd find a lot of water type of Pokemon. Is that the case for you, Nate, since you live by a lake?
Yeah, I'll say like I've got 41 Pokemon so far captured, and I'd say half of those are I think I probably have most of the water type Pokemon that are available.
Jeez. That's crazy. Well, if you're on any kind of social media, it's hard to ignore this game. Scrolling through my Facebook thread is literally one Pokemon thread after the other. This game's caught the world by storm. And you know what's really cool about it, too? It comes at a time where we really were starting to become a divided nation. A lot of bad stuff's been happening in the news lately. And then, you know what? This game comes out. It brings everybody together. All of a sudden there's no race, there's no religion. It's just people having fun together, you know, for a good cause, old people, young people, people that have never played a video game in their life, they're seeing this revolution, for lack of a better term, and like they're like, oh, what is it, and they're downloading it, and it's helping people be active, and I just think it's a win-win-win-win all over the board. It's a win for Nintendo. It's a win for gamers. It's putting mobile gaming on the map in a major way. So, I mean, I couldn't say any more like nice things about it. You know, what a time to be alive. That being said, y'all have any closing statements on that weekly topic?
Be careful playing the game. That's all
Yeah,
I'm gonna say.
be careful. What about you, Pedro? Anything?
No, sir.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our final segment called the end game, where we plug things or leave you all with a parting gift. So, Nate, do you have anything for the end game?
I do not.
You do not. As usual, the man of very few words to close out the show. Pedro, what do you have for us?
As always, check us out, facebook.com/groups slash extremely decent games, where they're talking about games 24/7. Engage in the conversation with us. And of course, as Nate plugged earlier in the show, please check us out for the special No Man's Sky podcast that's coming soon, detailing everything No Man's Sky.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was just going to plug. We're going to do a nice little featurette there and talk about the game. And then as we start playing the game and have it in our hands, we'll be doing something in the vein of a No Man's Buy or whatever the case is. But we will give you our impressions on it and let you know how we're liking the game. So everybody, thanks for joining us on episode 23. We will see you next week. Later.